Hey, welcome, Antoine. How are you? I'm pretty fine.
How was your start in 2022?
Pretty good, pretty good. I have lots of ideas how we can manage the water show this year, and yeah, I'm pretty excited that we have our first show of the year. How was your start?
Well, it was a smooth start. You didn't feel everything from the 2nd of January. Plus, with COVID is still around. I'm not telling something new to anybody here, but I'm working from home, which you don't notice. But I'm always at home. Usually, I'm always at home for the shows, but not in between. Now I'm at home for a month. So yeah, but this kind of thing we all get used
So
with COVID.
nothing has changed. Nothing has changed with you.
Yeah,
You mean?
the
Okay.
only thing that never changes is that nothing changes. I thought it was the opposite, that change is the only thing that doesn't change, but that apparently is not
All
true.
right. Great. I'm looking forward to our great show today.
Yeah, something very important for today. It is, I hope it to be a very interactive show. So we have a lots of topics on the table, and we want to really take the collective intelligence from the chat and whatever you have to say. So what we'd like to do, see, is take the chat like that and take you with us. So you will be on stage with us right here. So I see that some of you are already saying hi. So hi, Sheldon. Hi, Hemamalini. Happy to have you. And that being said, you know the rules, you know the name of the game. So let's kick off. What do you think, Björn?
I'm ready to go. Hello and welcome everybody to the episode number 11 of the Water Show. Our partner for this show is Cadium. Cadium, never heard? Well, potential unicorns mostly are under the radar until they break through to the surface. Anyway, Cadium gives utilities of all sizes the visibility to improve the performance of their network, to identify the efficiency, and to ensure continuity of their service. That's what they do briefly. But with my words, it's all about hydraulic modeling. So that means if you are using Ethernet, that is the 80s, and Cadium is the future. Means if you are a hydraulic modeler or if you are a user of Ethernet, you will love Cadium. And Cadium would love to get a message from you because they want to share their experience with you. Since their launch during the Aquatech last year, more than 150 utilities joined the network on kdm.com. So check it out. And by the way, Antoine, do you remember our show in Amsterdam? Do you remember that we invited Damien to our live show? And he brought a friend with, and the friend from Damien was Q. Q was a fully automated robot, a digital assistant. And he walked all the way next to Damien into our live show. And finally, he explained what Cadium is about. And that exactly describes the nature of Cadium. Cadium is the future of hydraulic modeling for the water industry. Thanks for being our partner today.
And that makes for a smooth transition for the rest of our show today, because as you see in the title, it's about unicorn potential. And the reason why usually unicorn emerge out there, it's not because someone says, hey, that is wonderful, let's pour all my money in it. It's because there are problems out there, there are challenges. And if you find a challenge and if you solve it in a nice fashion, if you find that perfect product market fit, and if you're the real solution to a problem, then chances are that somewhere down the road you become a unicorn. Today, our discussion is not that much about the unicorn itself, rather about the challenges we see out there in the water world and the ways to address these challenges. And if we find a right alignment, then the unicorn element is going to be a byproduct of it. And we only hope for the best for the technology we will be reviewing today. So we open with two of these technologies. And these two technologies have something to do with really water you don't see, water which is up in the air, and that's atmospheric water. And we have two different type of technologies to address that exact point. We'll be presenting you a bit what these two technologies are and then we'll discuss, does it make sense? Do they bring any good? Are they positive? Are they negative? Is it bullshit or is it in the bull's eye? That's what it's all about. Björn, what do you pick as a technology on your end?
So, as you said, right, I mean, we are talking about atmospheric water technologies, and there are different ways. And I would like to present one technology. And the benefit here, I would directly message this at the beginning is we don't need any energy. So, and that is the most coolest thing ever because I'm talking today about cloud fishing. Cloud fishing, I'm not sure whether you have ever heard that, but cloud fishing is principle. It's in principle totally simple. So the wind is pushing the fog through a net, and then the small droplets will stay with the net and will get collected to bigger droplets, and they will get collected in a basin. And from there, you can distribute it directly to the households as drinking water, believe it or not. That is exactly the case. So that means depends a little bit on the region and on the season. You can produce between 4 to 14 liters per square meter of these nets, right? Let's say there's one thing I have to mention here, and I have to be very clear in the beginning. You have to put it somewhere where fog is. So that means outside UK, joke aside, you have to put it most probably somewhere where fog is, and this is somewhere on the mountain. So there you have the water which is inside the fog, which you can get collected with this net. So that means we are talking about the entire west coast, for instance, of Latin America and South America. We are talking a little bit of California. We are talking about Morocco, a little bit of Eritrea, this area there, Oman, which is very, very rocky. If you put it there on a mountain, if you put the net on the mountain, this is so produced that the net can go up to 120 kilometers per hour from the wind. So it is very stable, and it has some rubber expanders. So that means if the wind is too strong, it will go with the wind, and up to a certain point, there are a predefined breaking points where the entire system collapse, that you don't damage the net, which is pretty important, right? So up to 120 kilometers an hour. But think about that. A storm is here in our, let's say, Europe countries is with 40 kilometers an hour. So, but these nets can go up to 120 kilometers.
Okay.
Again, you put it on a mountain, it is very rocky, you need the fog, and the droplet goes through the net, and you collect the net, and then you distribute directly the drinking water to the households. That is cloud fishing at a
Okay,
glance.
but there's a step I don't get in between, because you get that
Okay,
water, okay, from the fog, you collect it in your net, and then it becomes drinking water by magic, or what happens in between?
well, Antoine, pretty simple. Listen, again, you have to put it on a mountain. So that means if you are in a mountain, I'm not sure whether you have ever been, but the air there is a little bit cleaner, as for instance in Basel, right? So that means
Okay, so
the
you're that's wishful thinking.
no,
Interesting.
it's not wishful thinking. I can give you the study. What you get out, and I will present this later. What
Did
you
you ever
get
visit
out,
La Paz in Bolivia, which is the
what
highest
you what
capital on Earth and one of
what
the
you
most
get out
polluted
is
places
a
on Earth?
clean. Let's say you have drinking water regulations in Germany. You have the World Health Organization, who has limits from the drinking water perspective, and whatever you get out from the clouds in these kind of clean areas is below the limits which are written down in these laws. So that's the definition of drinking water, isn't it?
Yes and no. I mean, that
No,
is
yeah,
that
no,
is
no.
wishful thinking. It
Let's say, if I am with my water below the limits of the drinking water law, is it drinking water or not?
how how can you know? Do you measure it?
Yeah, definitely.
So you measure it, but you don't treat it. There's nothing in place to treat. I'm just asking you.
No, the point is they tested that a couple of times, especially in Morocco. Morocco on a mountain, and they tested that and they compared. None of these values are below are above the drinking water law. So that is the interesting point here. So you don't need any treatment. You can go from there directly with a pipe to the household. I mean, think about that. You are somewhere in the mountains, so you have a pipe connected, which go to a collecting basin, and from there it goes to the several villages. And you can distribute the water, the drinking water, direct into the household by gravity. Even there, you don't need any pump. How cool is that? It's a win-win situation, isn't it?
But with a risk. Just admit it. There's a risk. You're not treating that water. You're not monitoring that water, and you're saying, yeah, most of the time it's probably pure. But again, I said my point. One of the most polluted capitals on earth is La Paz or Mexico, just because they are in a high place in the world. And when you're on a high place, air doesn't circulate that much, and if air doesn't circulate that much, you have pollution.
Okay,
So
okay. I get your point. I get your point. Let's say if you want to put the cloud fishing somewhere where it is more polluted, I mean, you should check upfront how the quality of the water is before you go down, right? This I think makes pretty much sense. But let's say the test I have seen, the results I have seen, the analytics I have seen are all below, far below the drinking water from Germany. So what do you have in your pocket? Come on,
first, I have
something with energy. Something with energy. Come on,
I have
I know
first a
you.
trump card, which is to tell you that you say drinking water from Germany, but maybe the norms in Germany aren't that accurate. So, but who
It's
knows?
clear that this comes from a French guy, right? Who's saying we are not so accurate. Okay, got it.
Actually,
Please,
um,
can someone write this down that he was saying this?
no, I'm just saying that honestly, I think French and Germany obviously have the same rules because it's Europe. But if you look at the
Yeah.
rules, for instance, in Chile, Chile has rules which are 100 times more stringent on certain regards than Switzerland, and you would sometimes believe the opposite. So I'm just saying, if you choose your own way to measure yourself, maybe it has its limitation. But it was just to give an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Actually, the technology I picked on my end is atmospheric water generation, and the reason I picked it is because I was monitoring LinkedIn a bit over the past days, and I have to say, right now there's a bit of noise around that specific technology. And the reason why
True.
there's a bit of noise is some influencers, and I would name two. Michael Stanley Garisdorfer is making like a series. So if you want to have a deep dive to atmospheric water generation, look at everything he's been publishing over the past week. And of course, our good friend Walid Khoury, who was with us in Amsterdam, you were referring to that show. He was with us on that stage, and he made a poll on LinkedIn, and it was really half half. Half of the people said atmospheric water generation is a scam. It's the stupidest thing ever, and it's not worth the money. And the other half of the people were saying it is the most beautiful thing there was, there is, and there will ever be. So I'm a bit, in between, asking myself what is true, what is wrong with that regard. I had the chance on my podcast Macrophone to discuss with Navkaran Singh Baga from ACFO, and I was discussing with him exactly about this atmospheric water generation. And what I really liked about that discussion with Navkaran is that even though he is one of these companies promoting atmospheric water generation, he was very clearly saying this is what it is for, and it is what it is not for. And that's really what I like about someone who is promoting his technologies when he's not pushing it just because he wants to push it. Swiftly said, there is at any time around us in the air about twice the water present in the Lemon Lake. So you can just have a look at that, take it, and if you take all the water which is up in the air, it takes 9 days for the Earth to refill those reserves. So somehow the idea is wherever you are, there is some air. Inside that air, there is some moisture. Let's capture it. And if you've ever seen at a cooling facility, you know exactly how that works. You condensate that air, you take the water, and you use it, but you treat it. So that is the technology I wanted to put here on the table. What do you
Okay,
think,
so
Björn?
how does it work? So which one you have picked? I know that atmospheric water generations. I mean, there are plenty of them. There are plenty of them, and they have all different kind of ways how to operate, how to run. And I want to come later to the X Prize, to one of the companies who won the X Prize in 2018. I'm not sure that this is on your list. So which one you have picked? Which one you have saying, hey, which one is the best one?
I'm not picking one in particular because I don't have that thinking that I am someone that can tell that is the best one. Basically saying I would go for one technology which is on grid because there are also off grid solutions. I would take an on grid solution and I would leverage the fact that you have more often
Okay,
electricity
okay.
available than you have utility water available. That is the beauty of SDG 6 nowadays. Is we didn't rule it, and the beauty with some irony inside. We didn't rule water for all, but electricity is a bit more developed than water. So let's leverage that. And whenever we have a grid and not water, why not produce
But
atmospheric water?
okay, but what's the benefit of having a generator compared to having a cloud fishing technology somewhere on the mountain?
Well, if you're on a mountain, and your mountain is not polluted, then maybe cloud fishing is a good solution. The benefits of atmospheric water generation is that you don't need to be on a mountain. You can be wherever you like to be, you know. And I wouldn't say those technologies are competing one against the other. So yeah.
Okay, let's say if you're saying that this is not comparable, but let's say what about price? What is the price of a water, atmospheric water generator?
So first, we have to know what we're comparing
Okay,
things
good,
to.
good
So
point.
I'd say that atmospheric water generation is not there to replace the water you draw from the river. You treat a bit, or even worse, the water you take from the groundwater and you just distribute to your network. You will never compete with that, and that's not the aim. Atmospheric water generators come in places where everything else has failed and you still miss water. So when everything else has failed, what do? You have bottled water. So whether bottled
Hmm.
water or trucks that you fill with water that you bring to the center of the village and people are drawing water from that truck. So those are the options we are competing with. And today, with the current technologies, you can expect your little liter of water produced by atmospheric water generation on grid to be about 3 cents. So 3 cents is about 10 times cheaper than the average entry level bottled water, not the marketing one, which are crazily expensive. But so um, if you take the cheapest bottles, atmospheric water generation is 10 times cheaper. So if you compare it to that, it's a better solution.
Okay, okay. Let me be more precise here, right? Let me be more precise. So, in principle, a bottled water depends on where you go to. We are talking about 21 cent a liter somewhere in Turkey, and most probably somewhere in Europe. We would talking about, I don't know, $1.50 somewhere in Europe up to Denmark. This is somehow the range we are talking about. So that means if we are talking about cloud fishing, which cloud fishing means we are talking about 6 cents a liter in production. And the high production is just because due to the fact that you have to go up to the mountain. And that's a little bit the drawback because you have to bring all your stuff up to the mountain. And most probably we know all that the access going on the top of the mountain is not so easy. So that you have to bring that with some horses because you can't go by motorbike and so on and so on. So you have to bring that up. That's why the price is a little bit higher. But let's say if you really go with an atmospheric generator process or technology, you can go down below 2 cents a liter. And that is an interesting part, isn't it,
What I'm saying,
Antoine?
yep.
So, and more important, let's say, if we're talking about the height of the cloud fishing, do you have an idea? I mean, we have the energy production all around here in Europe, right? And we're using windmills. I'm pretty sure that you know windmills because you use also in France, you use some windmills. Do you know the difference in energy production between if you have a windmill 100 meter above ground or 200 meter? How much more energy you can get out? Do you have any idea?
I don't know.
It's 1.5. So that means if you have a windmill 100 meter above ground and 200 meter above ground, you get 1.5 more energy out of the windmill. And that's why it is so important to go for the cloud fishing up on the top. So, but there was an interesting question by Julie because Julie was asking, wouldn't, if I'm, yeah, giving me again, change surrounding ecosystem? The pictures I have seen, the pictures. I mean, if you put on each and every mountain all the nets, most probably yeah, you would change that. But let's say if you go in particular to some mountains, I'm pretty sure it would not really change the ecosystem. What would you change? I mean, compare that with a windmill, right? I mean, yeah,
Actually, the comparison is right because it is the same fear. Because if you look nowadays, and that's true for atmospheric water generation, that's true for cloud fishing, that's true for windmills. And I'm not myself a meteorologist, so I cannot tell you if it's right or wrong. But in that two extremes I was mentioning of the people saying it's perfect and the people saying it's awful, what people saying it's awful are also saying is that we are playing with climate. And to the same extent that a windmill is playing with wind, if you're playing with moisture in the air, you're playing with climate. And I'd say on on the region of things, that's probably true. You're playing a bit with climate, but the question is, what's wrong with that? So
yeah. I would like to talk about one company about atmospheric water generation, which is the company. Hopefully, I say it right. It's VDAY. It's called WEDEW. Have you ever heard about this company, Antoine?
No.
They, I mean, we know all the X prize, which goes around for for the ecosystem and so on and so on. In 2018, there was also a prize. Let's say if you are able, I have to read that, if you are able to produce 2,000 liters a day for less than 2 cents a liter with 100% renewable energies. If you are able to produce that, you win 1.5 million. There was one company, which one I mentioned is WEDEW, which won this prize because they went to atmospheric water generator, and they produced exactly this amount for this money with no energy beside the starting energy. So the question for me is a little bit, I mean, you mentioned the poll in the beginning, right? Where 44% say, hey, this is waste of money. 2018, this company won 1.5 million. Where are they now? Where is the technology now? Why is it still, if you are able to produce for less than 2 cents more than 1,000 liter, why isn't that the unicorn in our industry?
Because I think you're setting the wrong benchmark. Um, Looking
The
at
benchmark was
cost.
set from the price
No, no, no. I'm saying
from the
looking
yeah.
at price as a benchmark for that technology is not the right lens. The right lens is a bit what Navkaran just said here. The right lens is it is a way to have decentralized generation of water. That is the right lens. It's not about having the cheapest supply of water. The cheapest supply of water is having water available, and I hope that for everyone. I mean, you mentioned I live next to Basel. The Rhine River could stop flowing. I would have water for the next 100 years. I can only wish that to anyone, but it is true that it's not true everywhere. So that is one aspect of it. Um, the second aspect, which makes me a bit react, and I'm a bit epidermic on that one, honestly. You mentioned, oh, it has to be from clean energy.
This is what the
Yeah, yes,
the
but
company who gave the prize,
to me,
the
that is a double
foundation who gave the
standard.
prize, they defined the rules, and
Yes,
they
but
said
what I'm
two
saying
cent 1,000 liter renewable energies.
what I'm
That's what
saying
they
is that
said.
this element of the clean energy is something which comes regularly in the discussion. Look at LinkedIn right now. It's like a Christmas tree. Atmospheric water generation is just popping everywhere, and you look at the comments, and all the time people will tell, it can be an interesting technology, but only if it's made of renewable
Yeah.
energy. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, I would wish our full world to live on renewable energy, but nowadays there is still 21 terawatts of installed energy in renewables. All the rest is just energy which is produced with nuclear, with coal, with oil, with whatever. And we are not asking to reverse osmosis plants to run 100% from renewable energy. We're not asking to our sand filter factory, which is down my road, to be working with 100% renewable energy. So why are we expecting that from a new technology? It's like, you're fully new in that race. You don't have
Mhm.
any means comparable to the companies out there, and on top of that, you take that additional weight because you have to carry this 500 kilograms because you shall work only with renewable energy. Why?
But let's say actually we have also the discussion between Germany right now and France, right? Even on a different level because of the nuclear plants. Because France is going saying, hey, the nuclear plants needs to be green. It needs to be labeled as green.
It's decarbonated. That's the discussion. Yeah.
while Germany is saying, hey, that doesn't make any sense. Isn't that the same logic you're using? Saying, hey, why needs to be the atmospheric water generation? Why this needs to be with renewable energies? Why
No, I'm
not?
just saying that is the
I
wrong
mean,
debate.
come on,
That is absolutely the
we
wrong
are going.
debate.
Yeah, no, we are not. It's not because also with the power generation, we are going with solar and we are going with windmills. That's all
Yeah,
we
but
do,
if
right?
if your
Beside
grid
France,
happens to be
they
fed
go
with
on
renewable
nuclear.
energies,
Well,
then
why not taking also the atmospheric water generation directly from the beginning with renewable energies? Why
because
not
it's a
making
nonsense. It's simply a nonsense.
why?
I mean, we are not working in isolation. There is a grid, and the only thing which is interconnected in that word is the grid of energy. And you're saying we have to create a specific grid where there's 100% guaranteed energy. So what do you want to do? You want
No,
to do blockchain and
I'm
to sell
no,
the
I'm
right
saying
to sell that was green energy? You plugged it into the wall, but that was grid and
That's
come on.
interesting. That's pretty interesting, because this is really, the a difference between you and myself, because I'm definitely saying, hey, we have the wind, we have the solar. Why not using this kind of energy to producing all to the water if we have
But
the
Björn,
possibility? That's
I'm not
why
saying
cloud fishing is
I'm
all
not saying
about.
we are not.
This is exactly
I'm not saying we're
what
not using. I'm just saying we should specifically use that, and that's just a nonsense. That's not the way you grid it. But we are really fully off topic with that. But I just don't
but
understand your
it's
argument here. The grid is interconnected. If you're in the middle of the night, then chances are that the full grid is powered with wind. And if you're in the middle of the day at 7 when everybody goes home and turns on the heating, I tell you, it's all this coal fire factory you have in Germany, which are supplying an energy to the entire Europe. And if that's what you want to live with, absolutely fine with that. I'm not in the energy market. I'm just saying it's a nonsense to say we want to focus exactly on that. But
okay,
honestly, we are going off
but
topic here.
exactly. So let's go back. Let's go back to this topic. And my question is a little bit. We have the poll from Valid, while 44% saying, hey, atmospheric water is totally nonsense. And we have a company who is, taking the risk, getting 1.5 million, saying, hey, we have 2 cent, we have more than 1,000 liter, and we have just renewable energy. And still, since 4 years, this technology has not really reached the market. Why? Is that because are the 44% right?
Honestly, I don't know why that. As I said,
But
you were.
you can take this one, because this is the most important one, most prominent one, with the 1.5 million. You can take all the others. You can
You're
take all the
explaining
others.
me
Pick
that
one.
that one I don't know the story. What I know is that,
You can.
remember, we've already discussed on that same show um, how Global Water Intelligence reacted to Source coming with an off-grid atmospheric water generator. And honestly, I don't believe in off-grid atmospheric water generation, because to me it's really putting some weight on weight on weight. But what surprised me is the way Global Water Intelligence reacted to that, because usually they're a bit, industry friendly, and they're trying to push the new things coming out
Yeah,
and promote it and say, those guys have a cool ideas and all of that.
yeah, I remember this article.
And
Yeah, yeah.
that article written by Christopher Gasson, so the head of Global Water Intelligence, that article was killing that technology, like saying, if you invest in that, it's because you've been cheated by someone who's good at pitching. But it is the most expensive water on earth and the most stupid. So I think that is part of the problem first, and second, and then I'll let you compliment what I'm saying. Second, and I think that came also in the poll from Walid. I think if you're asking me personally,
Mhm.
does atmospheric water generation make sense? I have to answer you no, because I'm sitting on the biggest aquifer there is in Europe. So why would I need atmospheric water generation? And I think that is exactly what's ongoing with this 44%. If you've
Yep.
never experienced water scarcity, if you've ever experienced the fact that you're just missing water, then why would you go for that stuff, which on
Yeah.
top of
Okay.
that
I mean,
is new and you're in a conservative business? So I think that is a big portion of this 44%.
but come on, Antoine, especially you and I. I mean, we try to have a more global look, right? So we're not just sitting here in Germany and
Yeah,
just
I'm
looking at the
saying me
German market.
in the sense I would
I
ask
mean,
my
US
neighbor, not
person, a
me.
US person near to Basel, yeah, you're good with your water you already have. But let's say there are still plenty of areas where we have really water scarcity,
That's
and
what I
we
say.
should, yeah,
That's what I say.
we need technologies to solve this crisis, to solve this issue. I mean, honestly, I would not say that Christopher really crashed a little bit the technology. I'm pretty sure he did not. But let's say he was just judging a little bit the investment into this particular company. That was the article about, and not in particular just the technology, but it was more about, if I remember right, a little bit about the investment structure from the venture capitals into this. But anyway, I mean, what is the conclusion here with the atmospheric generator technology? Is it useful or not? Can we answer that?
It is
I pr-
useful. Who,
it
who
is
can debate
definitely
that?
useful, and they definitely. And I think even, it doesn't matter whether you cloud fishing or you use a generator. Cloud fishing has drawbacks and a lot of pros. Especially, it doesn't need any energy, and you get a very, 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 very clean water out of there. So, and if you have the capability to
That's
put
your
it somewhere
belief.
on the
Okay.
mountain, which is, come on, read the studies. I mean, even you can read the studies and the numbers, and that's pretty cool. with the atmospheric generator, I mean, the coolest thing what I have seen is that there are some containerized system equipped with solar can operate everywhere. And that is a cool thing, which can help even somewhere in the desert. That was, I think, for military, approach. But even this can go for areas where we have really huge water scarcity. There you can build up these kind of containers where you can get the water out of the air. Why not?
I think the important part in what you said is fit for purpose.
Yeah.
If you're part of the army and you're in the middle of the desert and you don't care about efficiency at all because you simply need water where you are and there's no infrastructure because you're not building a city when you're moving your army, then yes, it makes sense to have it containerized. And I think the point, which was somehow right in GWI's article, we will link to the article in the comments for the people who haven't read it. I'm not really,
It's an old one, right? I think it's 1.5 years old.
it must be 1 or 2 years old. It's not that
Yeah.
old, but it's still old.
Mhm.
But what they were pointing is that, and they were right to that extent, that if you put a decentralized stuff in the middle of a city, it's stupid because you have other ways to do something. So it's really about this fit for purpose. And I think the company they were somehow roasting also has cool references in the middle of nowhere in Australia where there's nothing, there's not even electricity there. So then this decentralized approach is cool. So just to say, it's about fit for purpose. And I'd like to really meet these 44 person that say it's stupid and to just ask them, where are you?
Mm.
Are you in a place where you open the tap and you get water? Okay, then I understand. I get why you don't feel it. But if you feel it once, you don't want to experience water scarcity anymore. I think that's a bit what's at play here.
Before we change the topic, I just want to highlight one comment. I'm not sure whether you know this person. I think it's Rene Habers. I something rings a bell for me that you should know this person. He said Germany is a benchmark. So take this, Antoine.
Yeah,
All the best. All the best to Rene. I mean, I think is a colleague of Antoine.
yeah. He's the marketing director of GF Piping System in Germany. So
Yeah.
I would say he's not objective neither because yeah, Germany.
Okay, so
We reached the middle of the show, Björn, and we have a lot
yeah,
of other topics on the plate. If the chat wants to get on fire and to discuss with us on atmospheric water generation, we can come back to it. But I think right before we've discussed about the polls of everybody around LinkedIn, but we had our own experiment, right?
exactly. So one thing we did is we asked you guys out there, what kind of crazy ideas do you have? And we presented you three more. So we presented you the iceberg, iceberg. How can I say this? The iceberg, not really
Harvesting,
technology, harvesting
iceberg
or
harvesting.
yeah, harvesting
I'll develop
to
it.
get some water out. I mean, I think Antoine will explain in a minute. We have the oil pipelines to transport the water, and as well we had easy water, so the exclusion zone water desalination process as kind of idea. And we ask here, which one of these three you like or you think will turn a little bit the water industry on its head, or do you have any other ideas? And this was pretty interesting because the poll was saying that out of the three, the iceberg was really ridiculous number. Just 6% said, "Hey, this is a crazy and cool idea." We had, yeah, thanks for putting this on top. We had the oil pipelines, which were saying 31% saying it's a cool idea, and easy water was also 37. And we said also before going to that, and you comment a lot of other technologies we also want to mention and want to talk about this in the next couple of minutes. We said, hey, from all people who voted, from all the 49 people, we want to give this water show mark for free to the winner or to one person. And now we want to have a quick, lottery to find who the person is. So therefore, we presented. Can you open the Excel spreadsheet? Perfect. Yeah, we have an Excel spreadsheet. Just a quick thing. We have all the names here, 47, so 49 minus Antoine and myself.
Come on, I
We
want to
have,
win.
yeah, I know, but you already have one.
Please
So we
cheat.
have all the names here, and we will select now a winner. So I just put the right number 47 into here, and if I press enter, we get a number, and then we will see who will get the mark in the next days. Can I have something like this? Ding, 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 ding. Perfect. Number 33. Let's have a look. Number 33 is Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson wherever you will be, I will contact you. Contact us if you're live on the show right now. Just let us know that you're here. I will contact you in let's say after the show directly, and I will send you this mug too. Congratulations, Antoine.
So we are back to the results of the poll somehow. Um, Before we discuss the content, let's give a bit of hint of what was hidden beyond the poll. So the one which clearly lost was this iceberg towing. So iceberg towing is actually the act of saying, okay, if we harvest just 1% of the iceberg, which are out there and which are anyways going to go somewhere to the ocean and melt away, we just harvest 1% of those and we bring them to the places of the world where they are missing some water, and those places are usually in the southern hemisphere because that's the best place to try it. But there are also some experiments to bring that a bit further. But the first step would be to bring it to places like Cape Town, like Chile, like Australia, and this has been done for decades. Because at the time where it was not possible to produce industrially some ice, they were taking the ice that way. So it just puts that back. And if you know Nick Sloan, have you ever heard of Nick Sloan?
No.
If you remember the Costa Concordia, you know that ship which was
Yeah.
Nick Sloan is the guy who went on that ship and said, okay, they screw. I'm bringing back that ship and I'm bringing it back home. So it's like the super captain, which is just saving these kind of ships. And he's the
Okay.
one now coordinating the project in Cape Town and saying, if I can put the Costa Concordia straight, I can also go and catch an iceberg and bring it to Cape Town. But okay, you're only 6 person to think that is crazy. Honestly, I tell you, the first time I've read that and the first time I've seen that, to me, I was fully with you. That was utterly crazy. And then I went down the rabbit hole and I've read all these reports and everything. And I've seen the project. I've interviewed some people on my podcasts and I've made a video about that on my YouTube channel. And I still don't believe it is a very clever solution, but I don't think neither it is stupid. So just putting that there.
Okay,
Björn, the
but
next idea was yours.
yeah, but I have one question for the iceberg thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're so convinced, I mean, you put a video, you read a book, you talk to a person in your podcast, and so on and so on. But for this poll, you haven't chosen iceberg. You have chosen easy water. Why are you not convinced anymore about the iceberg
No, I'm
technology, the
absolutely
iceberg thing?
the catching of the iceberg and the towing of the iceberg is just mechanics. You can calculate it, you can model it, and you can show that this is doable. The problem is once you have your iceberg just next to your hot city, let's say Cape Town, for instance, you have maximum 2 months to just crush it down and to make something out of it, and
Mhm.
that requires quite a level of infrastructure. You need to find a way to bring that iceberg close enough to the town without just hitting the bottom of the ocean. You need to find a way to just take down all that ice, and that is the difficult part because that is the part which nobody ever tried it, and as nobody ever tried it, we don't have a basis to calculate and elaborate on. So what it would take is someone saying, I don't care about how much it costs, I don't care about the odds, I'm just doing it.
But
And
what about the
then
ice bear? I mean, you're taking the ground from the ice bear. Where should he live?
not at all. No, come on, that was a stupid populist argument, Björn. You deserve better than that. You're taking
No,
icebergs which are already floating in the ocean and which would melt away every year. Thousands. It's even worse. Every day, tens of these icebergs are melting away and going to the ocean. So you're just taking one or two of them, which is just nothing. It's not even neglectable. It's really nothing. It's the definition of nothing. Has nothing to do with ice bears. And if you think that has something to do with ice bears, then we need to go 3 steps back and I need to show you some documentaries. Do you know National Geographic? I'll get
so
you.
so that means you don't care about the ice bear.
No,
Okay,
they're
got
not
it.
living on
Okay, got
icebergs.
it.
Come on,
Okay,
they're not living on
okay,
icebergs.
okay. That's a French thing, maybe. I don't
Oh,
know.
come
All
on,
right.
Björn.
No, honestly, I didn't read the book, but I read. I was listening to a podcast and so on and so on. But what me really scare with this is, I mean, you have the iceberg. What you see is just, we all know that it's just a part of the entire iceberg. The big part is under the surface. And I mean, how you want to bring this really close to a city. I mean, we are talking about hundreds of meters under the surface of the iceberg.
Mhm.
So how can you manage that? But it's most probably a different topic here.
The towing effort is not that big compared to this big cargo, and you don't even need the biggest towers which exist on Earth. You just need regular towers, and also it's not the story of the Titanic. It's not these kind of icebergs. It's you take tabular iceberg from Antarctica, and these are like you have to imagine it's just a rectangle which is very very big, and that's it. It's not something which is turning
So
around
we
and
are
which is
talking. So
yeah.
we are talking about the penguins. So you don't care about the penguins. Okay,
Oh
got
come
it.
on, move to your crazy idea. I want to roast you as well.
Okay, so the other idea I found was pretty interesting. I read an article about that we should use the oil pipelines for water distribution. So and I was thinking about that. Why should we do that? I mean, but in principle, the idea is not as stupid as it sounds, because, and I will tell you why. We have areas where we have water scarcity, and I don't have to look, and I don't have to go to Africa, or I don't have to go to California or somewhere else. Even here in Germany, we have areas somewhere northern Berlin to up to the Baltic Sea, where where we don't have so much groundwater to produce enough drinking water. So what is the alternative? The alternative is to produce it somewhere else and bring it up to the point where the point of use is, so where the people live, because this is less expensive as if you would use a very high-end treatment facility plant. And by the way, we have these kind of oil pipelines. If you check on Google, look at your country, the oil pipelines network. It is so incredible how many pipelines you have in your country. You in France, I myself in Germany. Look at the US. It's incredible. But in future, we will no longer use them. So that means it could be a potential distribution network to bring water to a place where they don't have any water. And the other thing is, if you do have, let's say, an emergency, like they had the hurricane in the US, so the entire water system was down, so you couldn't produce any water because there was no electricity and so on and so on. They could use this kind of network to bring it to the people, because they can bring it from somewhere else. They don't have to use what they have locally. They can bring it from somewhere else, and that is a beauty. That's the idea I bring today to this table.
And this somewhere else is somewhere in the mountains, right?
It could be from cloud fishing. Yeah, definitely.
No, the reason I'm asking is that you're moving water around, but how do you move water around? You need to pump water, right?
Definitely, you have to
So the
pump it.
expensive thing is going to be the pumping. It's not the
Absolutely, but
piping.
with green energy, with a windmill and with solar, why not? The point is, I mean, you're right. You need energy to do that. That makes most probably this is the drawback of the system. But let's say if you go into areas where you don't have any water and where it is very costly to produce the water, or let's say the chances that you get good water out there is pretty low, that you can distribute, or let's say you can produce somewhere else and you bring it to the place where you want to have it. That is the beauty.
It's interesting because I was showing this comment because Rabbit was explaining you that the beers don't exist in the southern hemisphere. But let's look at the second part of the comment. He's saying that it's not serious to discuss iceberg, and to some extent, I said it. He's right, but the iceberg water idea is the one that came after your idea, because they were looking at this idea of taking big pipes and taking water from one basin and pumping it to another basin, and the result of that calculation was that is too expensive. So as that was too expensive, what they were looking at is, okay, let's go to the outlet of some rivers and put that water into boats. And we take the
Mm.
boats and we bring them to the place where they are needing water. And that was still too expensive. And so they said, instead of boats, let's take containers. And container was still too expensive. And after the containers, they thought, okay, what if we didn't have to wrap that water inside something? And that's how the iceberg idea came along. So what you're saying is that the iceberg idea is stupid, but the three ideas that were worse, and you're picking then the fourth, which is worse than the three others, and you're saying, hey, that's the solution. That first thing. Second thing, what is the material of all these pipes, oil pipes? What are they made of?
Good question. I don't know. What are the major? I would say concrete. If they are older, don't know. Concrete?
I'm
No,
just
not
asking.
concrete.
I'm just asking
I,
because
I, I don't know. I don't know what they are here. I mean, they are pretty old, so they are since the 70s, 60s, even older. So I think
there's I don't know for the water, but I know that there were studies done to take, let's take, we take this full distribution, transportation pipelines, not distribution pipelines, so the transportation pipelines, and we replace the oil with hydrogen. And
Hmm.
the result was those pipes will simply not stand it. So it's not going to work. So they would not withstand hydrogen, but probably they're going to withstand water. You're an optimistic guy, aren't you?
I am. I am. So come to the next. Come to easy water. This is so crazy. What is easy water?
No, wait. I have to take that one because he's so right. Yeah, it sounds like, but honestly, we have to give you a lens on what we're trying to do today. We're trying to look at the crazy ideas because we know that there's plenty of good ideas, and we don't want to discuss the good ideas and say take one side or the other. We are rather into the crazy ideas today. So let me take the craziest idea, and honestly, to me, it was a surprise that that one won because the winner of our poll was
Easy water.
exclusion zone water desalination, which honestly, if you ask me, I find fascinating, but fascinating doesn't mean it's anywhere doable. That is
Can
not
can can
even
can you can you explain briefly how this technology works?
absolutely. So,
Okay,
easy
good.
water or exclusion zone water is what we call the fourth phase of water. And
Hmm.
before you roll your eyes and say, "Come on, I was at school and there are three phases of water," if you look at the rules of thermodynamics, there are 18 phases of water. So just to say, it's not just solid, liquid, and gas. But that fourth phase of water, this called semi-crystalline phase of water, has one
Hmm.
specific characteristic. It's that basically, as the name exclusion zone states, it is excluding anything which is not water from itself. So if you're able to build an easy zone, basically that easy zone is going to be free from anything else than water. So if you're taking salt water, it's going to be free from salt. So if you're able to just separate on one end your easy water, and the other end you're a bit more salty water, so it's not brine at that concentration, but it's a bit more salty, then you have a functioning desalination.
Yeah, but how does it really works? I mean, how can I produce drinking water out of that?
The
What
desalination
is the
itself,
method behind that? The technology behind that? I read a study. I didn't got it.
activating this easy water works with light. So basically, it's incident light. And Gerald Pollack, which is the researcher which is working on all of that, um, was able to demonstrate that it has really it's like the first step of photosynthesis. You have to
Hmm.
really put everything you know about water, you put your brain, you put it aside from you, and you just start from scratch and you just read and you try to understand. There's a rationale behind, and that is the fact which has been proven and has been uh, his protocols have been copied at other places and have been proven right. His interpretation belonged to him, and I cannot judge the interpretation. What I can judge is the fact. The fact is that that fourth phase is like a first step of photosynthesis where the incident light is somehow separating H2O into H3O2 and some
Hmm.
OH minus. So you have a water which is negatively charged, which is no longer neutral, and which has
Hmm.
this a similar shape to ice. So ice is hexagons of water, molecules on molecules. So like have the molecules like that, and they form an hexagon shape, and they are on top one of the other. And the difference with easy water is that instead of being on top one of the other, they are just off by half an hexagon. So that is the difference. But
Hmm.
don't go into that full detail. What you need to understand is that easy water separates everything which is not water. So that is a process which is working in the lab. But before it gets useful on the wider scheme of things, many things can happen, and there's this this valley of death where
Yeah.
many technology are dying.
Exactly. Exactly. The first question I have is, why do you have molecules on your desk? And the other question would be, what do I have to study to understand easy water?
Well, there's the book from Gerald Pollack, which is called The Fourth Phase of Water. It's
Okay.
pretty straightforward. Read
Mm.
the two first chapters. All the other
I,
ones are
I,
the are
I
his
read
interpretation.
I read a study I could find on the internet, so it was so unbelievable. If that works, okay, I don't care. But let's say to get to understand to implement that, and the issue today we have, especially with technology, why do they fail? Mostly, it is because they are focusing on technology. They are not focusing on the human next, or let's say behind the technology. So someone has to take the technology, has to operate them, has to understand them, and that's mostly one of the issues why technologies fail. And I'm not saying that is the reason why this will fail or whatever, right? I'm not saying that, but let's say you have to
That's right.
make it simple as possible. So, and that brings us let's go directly into the technologies.
So you're
Our
asking
audience,
questions, you don't want the answers. It's a new interesting concept. But okay, why not?
yeah, let's go this way, because we are a little bit running out of time, and we have so many cool technologies, especially someone else asking this in the questions in the chat. And one of this was supercritical oxidation, and this was a pretty interesting thing, because supercritical oxidation does have definitely a market, especially in our water industry, if it comes to where you have very high COD values. So that we are talking about 30,000, 40,000, even higher. If you have values like this, then a kind of subcritical oxidation could make sense, right? So think about water reuse, or think also about sludge treatment, especially what we have here in Germany with the new legislation
Björn,
to 2030.
take one step back.
Because it
Take
needs
30 seconds. Take 30 seconds and explain what supercritical oxidation is, because
Well,
to you it's obvious,
well,
but not to everyone.
I would do it right now, because we have to separate a little bit subcritical and supercritical. So subcritical is everything which is below 100 degrees up to 374 degrees, and with more than 1 bar, as long as it's fluid. Supercritical is everything below above 374 degrees and 221 bars. So that means water is still liquid, and if you increase the temperature as well, the pressure, you have a very high reduction rate, especially for sulfidic, for organics, for COD, and you have a better solubility for oxygen. So that means it's a kind of reaction. So you put your reactor, whatever it is, a vessel, or it's a tube or whatever, right? You put it up to this temperature, you put it up to this pressure, and then you put oxygen in, and then you have a kinetic like this, and then you get the COD limits pretty well down. So that's the physics behind. So in principle, it's one of the coolest technologies. But even this has the same what I said with easy water. There's an issue. The issue is here the human as well, the material. The human needs to operate the entire supercritical process in a way that it works. And they have so many parameters like oxygen, nitrogen, air, the time, the COD level, the heat exchanger as well, the energy which comes in, which goes out, something like this. So there are so many parameters you have to control that you have a smooth operation. On the same side, you cannot operate a system like this with a material like stainless steel. You need something like alloy 600 and even better to make sure that this material can last with this temperature and with this pressure. So the physics is great, works pretty well, but to operate this is not as simple as it looks like.
And Rabbit is offering me an awesome transition to the next point we wanted to discuss, because one of the things that came out from our poll as well, because we asked you to give some suggestions. That's why Björn was mentioning supercritical oxidation, which was one of the things we discussed on our propositions. And the next thing was energy positive wastewater. And yes, Rabbit, you're fully right. The thing is, if you look at the theory of it, inside wastewater, there's 7 times the energy needed to treat the wastewater. And despite that fact, we are still pouring tremendous amounts of energy inside that wastewater just to treat it. So it is stupid, but it's the best we have today. So the question is, which kind of technology will bring us to this energy positive side of things? So one thing that comes to mind, and I've seen Yuli in the chat at the beginning of that live, is everything related to microbial fuel cell, microbial electrolysis cells. You can think of anaerobic reactors. There's all these elements which are leveraging the content of that wastewater to make it positive. But
Yeah.
on the long scheme of things, we could imagine having a plant which is decarbonated, which is even decarbonating because it could be carbon negative, which is producing energy. And that sounds like science fiction, but it's much less science fiction than everything we've discussed so far. There are companies which are in the scale up process, which are working on exactly that. So I think from all the things we've discussed so far, supercritical sounds like this perfect, awesome idea, but which is maybe a bit too awesome to be really true.
It is pretty awesome. And Robert is right, can be energy positive, definitely. But you need a lot of energy, as Sheldon's already mentioning. You need you need a lot of energy to get the system run in the first phase. And then if the system is heated up, then you can use the heat to, to get rid of the energy, the external energy. So it is positive. But let's say in the beginning, you need a lot of energy.
But
Don't
I
ask
think
me about the number I have. I don't
that is
have
the
it in
next
my mind so
frontier.
far.
The next frontier is turning wastewater into resource factories, and resource factories involves, of course, the usual suspects we've already discussed on that microphone, like water, heat, and all that stuff, but also this energetical aspect. Looking at the time, we have a series of three which come a bit together, which have to do with digitization. So we will go swiftly over those. Don't be bothered if you like to go more in depth, because our
Yeah,
next show
because
is going to be about digitization.
exactly. I wanted to mention this the same. I mean, the other things, the other 3 points aforementioned was um, plant design, fully automated plant design. I think this was from Adam. I'm so 100% convinced in 20 years we will not see any engineers anymore sitting on a desk or let's say on a computer drawing any plant anymore, because the artificial intelligence can this do better, right? 100% definitely. But this is also part of the next show. We have the smart water smart water
Reclamation,
reclamation.
which is bits
Even
of,
this
of wastewater fit for purpose. So if you want to
yeah.
reuse that wastewater to irrigate your crops, you can dose the right level of N and P insights, that you could be having something which is perfect, and that you don't need to use fertilizers, which is you don't need the Haber-Bosch process to produce some ammonia, and so far and
Yeah,
so on.
but it is also about that you have the hardware like a pump, like a blower or whatever, like an agitator, which can operate with the data he get automatically. So if the
Yeah,
flow goes down, if temperature goes up, whatever, that he can reduce, the whatever he's doing. Yeah, so
that is the
that
fully
because
automated plant
it is not fully
operation.
automated plant; it's a fully automated device. That is different. The fully automated plant is the entire system, and even this, I mean, this is the third part of that. Uh, I don't know. Is there any fully automated wastewater treatment plant so far?
Oh, Björn, I'm so much looking for next month's show, because we will have a fight again. Remember, that was one of my bet for 2022, that we will have one. So,
Yeah,
but
and I said no, we will
let's
not.
not take it today. Let's fight over that next time. The last one we had on the list, and honestly, that's an interesting one on the paper, but I think neither you, Björn, nor me have a strong idea on it. Is optimized solar desalination.
No, not really. Not really. So if you guys from the chat, if you do have any idea what that really means, how this really works, just let us know. I couldn't find anything about that.
So that was a fast path on all these innovations, and honestly, we could have doubled the time on it, and
Yeah,
still have some things. So maybe there will be a follow-up and a sequel to that episode. We will have anyways next month the deep dive on digitization, but right now we are going to the news. Björn, ready?
I am always. All right. Yeah, my news I have this month was I came across with this sustainability report from Huber. One of my hobbies is reading financial reports from our industry and some kind of sustainability reports. And I came across with this from Huber. We all know Huber. I think I don't need to mention or to explain who Huber is. But part of this published sustainability report, and this what makes it really interesting, is they published also the survey they had with their clients and with their own employees. So I want to talk today about, or let's say I want to mention a little bit this, that they are very, very transparent in their communication, what they are doing. So let's say the survey about the clients was from 2014, 16, 18, and 20. And you could see all numbers they were asking about communication, about sales, about price performance ratio, product quality. All numbers are going down, not dramatically, but they all go somehow a little bit down. The beauty is, and that's why I would highlight that, Huber is putting this into the report and is publishing this. So they are very, very transparent. On the other hand is, I mean, we can see the numbers are going down a little bit. I mean, they have this kind of a school system from 1 to 6, so they are in range, I don't know, between 2 to 2.4, something like this. So that's where the drop goes. So it's not so dramatically, but the point is they are very transparent. On the other hand, they are publishing also the survey they have with their own employees. And there the picture is totally the opposite. So over the last years, from 2013, 2015, and 2018, the people who are working with Huber are more and more happy to work with Huber than the years before. How crazy is that? How transparent is that? How many companies are putting this kind of information into a public report?
I was using the hashtag weirdo because I really think you're the only one reading the report. But aside from that, I have to say it's pretty fascinating what you're sharing here
Absolutely.
because it's the kind of stuff you expect from startups. It's this kind of modern way of
Yeah.
managing, to say you're very transparent, you're sharing everything, and to see that from one of these very very big companies like Uber is
150 years, I think.
yeah,
150 years.
it's
Family managed
yeah,
company.
it's surprising, and to see how it works and how it's positive. Maybe it's a lighthouse. Maybe it can inspire some others.
Hopefully. I
Very
like it.
swiftly,
I like it.
very swiftly before we close, I have a call for collective intelligence. I've seen that news that the European Union is finally saying, okay, we had this exemption given to the water industry that you could use UV mercury vapor lamps in UV disinfection, and that exemption might come to an end. And if it comes to an end, that means that the water industry has 1 to 1.5 years to replace UV vapor mercury lamps through something else, which is going to be probably UV LEDs. And it's still a gray zone, so it's not clear if it will really mean the end of mercury, which is already an exemption for the water industry for the past decade. But if it does, then that is a game changer in UV disinfection. So I'd say let's try to keep posted about those news, because that might be something really different. Um, yeah, something else, Björn,
I
in the
think I
news.
think we I think I think we are good. I think it was a very intense discussion today about atmospheric water in general. I think cloud fishing or the generator doesn't matter. I think this is something promising, but something nobody knows really what to do with it. That's a little bit my feeling. It is promising. It can really help to solve the water crisis we have somewhere in the world, but it is not really somehow established, and I didn't get it really why. But it's interesting to have the discussion with you. So it was pretty intense, as I said, a lot of other stuff. And I'm really looking forward to the next one. About what is it about? The next one?
Digitization. But
Oh,
right
yeah.
before closing, I would say I would just give you a behind the scenes here. We call that show 7 Game Changing Ideas for the Water Industry. And if you've counted what we've shared directly from us, which didn't come from the interactions, there's only 5. So you might wonder how those guys don't know how to count from up to 7. That's not the case. We know exactly that we're missing 2 because we had those 2 on the list. And when we were looking at the show, we're like, okay, that is not going to fit within 1 hour, which is absolutely right. Because right now, when I'm explaining that, I'm over time. But just to know that we had 2 more ideas, and those 2 more ideas will come at some point down the line. So that will be the surprise. And we will tell you, that those 2 ones were the one we hadn't the time to discuss on that special show about game changing ideas. Björn, as always, it was a pleasure debating with you. Um, we
Wish
will
you all the
have
best.
an interesting fight next time.
And again, congrats to the person who won this first mark. If someone else wants to have a mark, just drop us a message. We have plenty of them.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye bye. Ciao.